And we're live, and welcome back to the CODESHO podcast, everybody. Cole here again with Matt, and
How's it going?
we're actually here recording a little bit late, to be honest with everybody. We actually just grabbed a couple beers, and we're just going to hang out and talk. There's a lot less planned here, just to be transparent than any other one, but we do have a little bit to talk about. We've spent the last week talking about a couple YouTubers. We talked about them a little bit in the last podcast. I don't think we intend to call anybody out by name,
Yeah.
but there's a plague in the community, as I love to say. It's like my favorite term. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about these people that just
So,
sort of suck.
yeah, well, I think there's an interesting thing on YouTube, and we know this happens in the fitness community, and I guess anywhere like me and my wife, we watch a lot of like eating channels, and the way that smaller YouTubers will get famous is by hating on bigger YouTubers. So we've seen this in the fitness world. I watch it in the eating world, and more than recently, over the past couple of years, I've noticed it in the tech world as well.
Yeah, it's really bad. These people, some of it to me feels like trolling. Like,
Yeah.
let's take, for instance, maybe some people are going to draw some conclusions here, but we're going to talk about a guy first that his wife has left him, right? She kind of like took his kid. He seems pretty down. And look, I'm not trying to beat anybody while they're down. It is what it is. But this guy, I guess here's my problem is it seems like he's got some problems with relationships, right? And
Yeah.
like for me, the tech industry, any industry, relationships are going to matter a lot just as much as your technical skill, honestly. Like, how many people have you worked with that they're just toxic, so toxic that even if they were good, you just can't be around them?
Of course. Yeah. There's always people like that.
Yeah, and I just think this guy's kind of like that, and he's the one sitting here giving advice to everybody. And sometimes I listen to this guy, and like I said, I just think he's trolling. Like, you can't be serious. People can't really listen to you.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's the thing. Like why I mentioned like the negativity. It's weird because I don't know if they're like champions of tech YouTube, but like like this guy that we're talking about right now, he shows up on my feed a lot, but all he does is rip on programming. He rips on programming jobs. Like he is just so negative. And then on his website, he tries to sell you on his courses on like how to become a programmer. Like I don't know why you would listen to this guy.
It feels clickbaity.
Yeah, and that's my problem in general. That's why I like what we're doing, and I hope we're doing something a little bit different. We're trying to offer value. Like I think the tutorials that we're putting out on YouTube are good. I think these podcasts are pretty good. We're not trying to rip on anybody. We're trying to talk like tech talk, fun talk, something.
Sure.
I mean, obviously it's conversations that we would really want to have.
By the way, let's take a second real quick. Little self-promotion here. So before we continue ripping on YouTubers, we did – okay, so we could be transparent,
Yeah.
right? You're with me? Yeah.
I talked about it on my personal YouTube already.
Yeah. So basically, what we had in mind here was that we had the idea of creating a new tech brand, a new course for people, and the whole goal was like, for me, this wasn't so long ago, but regardless of how long ago it was, you and I both have perspectives on how we got into the tech industry, what worked for us, and we wanted to bring that to the table in a way that wasn't just, hey, here's how you write this sort of code. We were like, hey, you want to make more money, you want to improve your life, we're going to take you on the path that we took, and instead of taking all of these different courses and not knowing what to learn, not knowing what's profitable, not knowing what skills employers are looking for, we'll just take you there. So we came out with a course, and originally we were going to make it paid. And I think in the end, we both just realized, and look, it's not all just ethical and moral, but like we did decide, hey, let's just make this free because there's a couple reasons for that. One, we'll get it into the hands of way more people. Selfishly, that's going to grow our brand. People are going to know about us a little bit more. Hopefully, if you're listening to this and you're interested in iOS programming, that's the one that we have up right now. Go take it, get to know us, get to know who we are, get to know our learning style, give us some feedback. But yeah, like the goal was to just get those out there, start growing the brand. And I'm hoping that people receive that as the authenticity that we're trying to provide. So that kind of segues into the whole ripping on YouTubers thing anyways. But I just kind of want to throw that out there if you're listening to the podcast or
Because like I like how we shifted because we obviously talked about like if we think you should go to college and like where's the value in that, and we actually came to a different conclusion. But I still said I don't know if it's necessary. Even if I still think that I don't think it's necessary to get that first job. And that wasn't selfish. It wasn't just because we were gonna try to sell a course, and now we're giving away for free. And I feel the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also said I think that a place like Laracast is better than a place like LinkedIn Learning because it's
Right.
more specialized.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that wasn't. These aren't like selfish goals, or like these aren't like selfish like lies. The purpose is that's why I'm trying to create an iOS course or an Android course, because I think that will be better than the courses that are already out there.
Sure. And hopefully students receive that well. And again,
Yeah.
like the cool thing about us doing this right now is obviously the channel's not as big as we hope it will be one
Mm-hmm.
day. We've got a lot of connection with anybody that wants to talk to us. We've even
Yeah.
got a public Discord channel that you can join if you want to come talk to us, and do whatever you want in the course. So I hope that's received well. That was my little pitch there. But like I said, we're just trying to. It doesn't sound very humble to say that we're trying to be as authentic and genuine as possible, but I mean we are. That is the truth here. So
Well, yeah, I mean, Jocko dealt with this as well. Like in the first chapter of Extreme Ownership, he says maybe it doesn't seem very humble, like
yeah, he says at the beginning of the book.
to write a book about leadership. You know, you must think that you're like the greatest leader in the world, and it's like, no, I made some mistakes, and I'm gonna see if I can help other people not make those mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where it's coming from. Also, I like programming, and if I work with people, I hope that they're good.
Sure.
And so if they learned, like, here's how I would wish my coworkers, or I mean, right now we do have good coworkers, but like, even when I was teaching, let's say when I was teaching at DigiPen, my boss told me when I first started teaching, don't act like a teacher. Train these people like they're gonna be on your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of like I think that's the way we're going with this.
Yeah. There's like really three elements of learning to get into this industry, and I always say this, but it's really the same in other industries as well. There's like the technical skill, which we definitely can teach somebody. We've definitely got the skill between the both of us to teach you the technical part of it. There's also the human relationship part, which both of us work on every day.
I mean, yeah, that's why we do like what do we call it, the soft skills, like when I talk about books. Or, I mean, we talk about them together, but yeah.
Yeah. And then there's just like the general attitude. And the cool thing about the latter two is you can even learn that from students. Like you can learn relationships and I don't know, in some ways I think maybe you're better at relationships than me, but we're always feeding off each other, and I'm feeding off anybody in my life that I can to do that part better. So like I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is with this channel, the goal is to not only just teach technical skill, but learn those relationships, learn those soft skills, learn those other things, and we're going to learn them along the way. We learn more literally every day of our life that we work together or do the podcast or whatever. So anyways, plug over, back to ripping on YouTubers. But yeah, I mean, that's like that. Those last two to me are really important because I mean, some of these guys don't even really teach technical skill that well. You talk about a guy that was a junior dev, that he's another YouTuber that he doesn't even offer any technical skill, but I don't dislike him as much as the other guy. I wish we could say the names, but I don't just want to rip on people directly.
Maybe sometime, but yeah, like we're not trying to throw anybody under the bus right now. We're just talking about the thing is, the guy who was the junior dev, he was selling courses, and that's the problem. Is like, yeah, like his actual YouTube, like he talked a lot about building a brand. He talks about trash programming jobs, which are true sometimes. Like he'll look at like on like Upwork or whatever, and I think I joked around and I sent you one time, like one that I had got emailed. So sometimes there are just trash jobs where like they want you to like they're hoping for like 15 years of iOS experience or something like that for like a junior iOS dev. It's like nobody has that. So he talks about that, and maybe that's real, but his general attitude is like, don't work too hard for your company. Like there's a difference between knowing your value and like trying to better yourself, which that's the attitude that we have. So it's just his general attitude is he's like, listen, I don't want to work for your company. I don't care about your company culture. I want to work my 8 hours and I want to go home and play video games. And by the way, spend $300 on my, like, if you can spend $300 an hour on my consultation course, and I'll go over your resume with you. Buy this like intro to JavaScript course, stuff like that on his website. Now, to be fair, he stopped selling the intro to JavaScript. He's more famous now, so he sells like branding, like more like marketing and building your own brand, which he's better at that than Dev. He's doing it. He's done it. He has like a couple hundred, 200, 300,000 subscribers, so he's doing that.
Yeah.
So at least he has some skill in that. But like, why would you want to take advice on how to become a dev from somebody who clearly hates it, and he quit. He quit. He quit doing it so that he could do like YouTube.
He said in one of his videos, he said that don't ever like care for a company because they'll never care for you, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it took me a while to understand why that bothered me so much. It's a very pessimistic way to look at the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's fair to say that if you work for some really big company, that could be a problem. Maybe, yeah, all the way at the top, they're not concerned with the people at the bottom. But I've definitely worked for people that I felt like actually cared, and they were interested in bettering me or us, the team that I worked on. They were willing to invest in us, and it was just expecting the same in return. So I don't like this attitude of, I just wonder, like, what had to go wrong? What went wrong for you where that's your attitude? Because part of me wants to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, I don't hate him nearly as much as the other guy we were talking about. The other guy drives me crazy because I actually think he's trolling people.
Yeah.
But this guy, for some reason, he's got such an awful attitude about work, and I want to understand why.
So yeah, because here's the thing. Even if you, maybe in the long run, your company won't care about you. In some long run, in 10 years or 15 years, maybe they don't care. Maybe even in 3 years, they don't care. Maybe that's just the company. My attitude has always been, and I try not to be selfish, but this is going to sound selfish. I really do think, like, I think of it as like an opportunity for me, right? Like when I worked at that first company, when I first moved to Las Vegas and I was working on weekends, even at our current company, we do work weekends sometimes. It's not always demanded, but it's like, I mean, I don't think it's ever demanded. Sometimes just emergencies come up. But like at that other company, I was going in on the weekends, 4:30 in the morning, and rebuilding one of their apps, because I was the iOS, or I was the Android dev. I was rebuilding one of their apps in iOS so that I could learn iOS. And I was just saying, like, they're paying me because, like, on my resume, it looks better. Like, what looks better? Like, worked at company X for 2 years on iOS and Android, or worked there for 2 years on Android and then personal iOS experience.
Yeah.
It looks better if I've done it myself, or if I've done it for, it looks better if I've done it for a real company.
Yeah. And with this, so I don't know if this is where you're going with this point, but even with that company, you probably didn't feel like they like super cared about you or anything, but you did make the best of the situation and you knew when to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and the team cared. That's the other thing.
That's really important, yeah, because you
Yeah.
could work at like Google, and yeah, maybe they don't care about you at the top, but the team you work for definitely could. People are people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hear that a lot in the military as well. People don't always understand what like the ultimate mission is, but like you're doing it for your buddy next to you.
Sure.
And like that's what I think. And again, it's fun. Even that couple of weekends ago when we were working on the weekend, and it was like we had some crunch and we all got together and we hammered that out. We even I said it, and I felt this way. I think you agreed. It was fun. It was difficult.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Like those are like the good memories.
I think most devs that really like doing this will tell you that the best and most fun times that they've had as a developer were when they were in these really time crunch, collaborative situations with their fellow coworkers or whatever. And I would say, like, I definitely share that same sentiment. Those have always been the funnest times for me,
Absolutely.
which is part of the reason why I myself have chosen to stick with the more startup route, because I just have more fun there. I feel like there's a lot more, and there's a limit. Like some people can get pushed to their limit. Bosses can be jerks. I don't deny that. Fortunately, I don't think we're in a situation like that right now, but they can. And the last boss that I had was toxic. But what's crazy about even that was he was awful and everybody hated him. Nobody liked the job. Nobody's passionate about what we were working on. But the times that we did have to stay up super late and all collaborate, we had a good time.
It's fun, yeah.
It did, yeah. And if you're passionate about this, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you like engineering, you've got the brain for it. Like you're just gonna have fun. Doesn't matter what you're working on.
That's the thing is, if you don't like that, okay, maybe even forget about the company, because I used to tell this to my students as well. The job is solving problems and debugging.
Yep.
And sometimes, so like we would have presentations that was like our equivalent of crunch. And so sometimes the students would stay overnight on campus, and I'd stay there with them, and we'd like order pizza and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I was just saying, like, this is hard, but this is the job. Especially in the games industry, there's a whole lot of crunch. And you don't have to work for those companies. You don't have to like it, but it is going to be like that at least some of the time. So if you don't like that, again, forget about whatever company. If you don't like that, then that's fair. Maybe you shouldn't be a programmer. Just pick your jobs carefully. But that is part of it. Because even I had a coworker. This was while I was also in school. He also didn't want to work late on anything. But then one time we got a project that was like because he was passionate about making games, not teaching. So we got this project, and he had like a weekend to make like a level editor for some game that they were submitting to something in Singapore. And he stayed up like 2 nights in a row. He didn't even sleep, and he ended up not only making a level editor. In order to test the levels, he recreated the game in the level editor. And they ended up, I don't know if they sold that, but like they ended up using that in school for like a long time. And that was just because he was having a good time. That's the thing about like a lot of programmers. I mean, you can do it for a job and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe like if you work at Godfather's Pizza, you're just doing it for a job and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But like one of the things I think is really cool about programming for me is that I like doing it. So even in my free time, even on Saturdays, or whatever, like when I was working on that, I'm still working on that game engine, but I'm working on it early mornings. I'm waking up early and like getting it done.
I mean, you're doing that 1,000 days of code too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, because I follow people on Twitter. I briefly told you about this. So I'm trying to follow and interact with people on Twitter more, like on our CODESHO account. And I'm saying like congratulations and like looking at people's projects and like if they're making cool stuff. Like most of it isn't apps, it's like web stuff, so I'm not as big of an expert on that. But like I'm commenting there, and somebody said something that I really liked, because the actual challenge is 100 days of code.
Right.
And then so somebody said, if you do 100 days of code, you can get a job. If you do 1,000 days of code, you can get any job.
Yeah.
Now, well, the thing is, I don't know if I actually believe that, because you've been programming for like 5 years. Something like that,
yeah.
Whatever.
Professionally yeah.
Yeah, so like you've done more than, overall in your life, you've done more than 1,000 days of code.
Yeah.
And I have too. And I don't think I can get any job. But I still liked the idea of the challenge. And so I was just like, so I started, what was it, last Thursday, I guess. It was like the day, or last Wednesday, it was like the day before my vacation.
Yeah.
And so even on vacation, we were out camping. And I'd do some coding challenge, just like 10 minutes, like at Starbucks, and I'd like upload to GitHub, upload to Twitter. So I'm on day 5 today, and obviously I worked for work, so check.
The hard part about getting into that 100 or 1,000 days of code, especially if you're expecting on the backside to get some job, the problem is losing that drive to finish what you start. Like that's always a problem, is like they say that 90% of projects get 90% done, and like that's that last 10% that people are like, nah, I'm just not gonna finish it. But I mean, I'm actually really curious to see 1,000 days from now where you're at, because if you can force yourself to finish projects and learn new frameworks and not bail on them, that'll be really cool to see where you're at.
Yeah, well, it's maybe it's different for us, because I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, because I'm not gonna necessarily start new projects. I mean, I am, but it's going to be different, right? Like for our professional job, I'm going to be coding anyway. But also every day I'm working on CODESHO stuff. So I'm working on courses.
Yeah.
So like, but I'm counting that. So
sure.
I do. I mean, that's the thing is like the big thing for me. Part of the reason I think it's a fun challenge is because, again, Monday through Friday we're already coding. That's like a no-brainer. I want to be working on CODESHO anyway, but like weekends and holidays is when I want to force myself, even if it's just like 5 minutes or I mean, however long, like do like a small coding challenge or something like that. Or if I can improve some people think this is cheating, but some people don't. If I can improve some documentation on like my game engine, right? Because like I'm trying to make that open source, put that documentation up. That's still code.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm gonna count that.
Yeah, I don't think that's cheating at all. I think that documentation is a very vital part of programming, and it's not done enough. I can't tell you how many times I go back in my code. I'm like, what was I doing? Man, I
Yeah.
really wish I knew what I was doing here when I wrote this.
Yeah.
So maybe end up rewriting it, which also is probably a good idea. Rewrite it and then add documentation.
So yeah.
But
So anyway, so the one guy has a bad attitude about programming, and that's fine. He says don't work hard, but then he also goes and works hard on his own projects. And so I think don't work hard or don't work hard for that company is bad advice. Like especially, and some people also say, we've talked briefly about this. Should you take an unpaid internship? And I was just listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and he had mentioned this same thing. And he says he gets like flack for this from some people, but he goes, you know what? If you're a paid professional, if you've been a paid professional, then yeah, you shouldn't take an unpaid internship. If you're an 18-year-old sending out like 20 resumes a day, like or whatever, 100 resumes a day, you're working. Bro, you're working.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like instead take that unpaid internship and get like some real skill, and maybe you can like actually learn from people.
Yeah, and I really wish people would listen to this advice. Like, if you don't have a job yet and you're looking for one, if you know anything about programming, there's somebody out there. Maybe they're not willing to pay you, but somebody out there is willing to let you do something for them. It's 2020. Everybody needs they need a website, or they need this or that. And like I said in a couple episodes ago, one thing I did one time was contact just some indie music artist and build him a website. One other thing, this kind of mixes 2 points together. This one plus just general attitude, and also we were talking about the working late nights and collaborating or whatever. One thing that I loved was not that long ago. I worked on a little website / admin panel for a little indie music festival that was going on.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought was so cool was I was visibly stressed out at work, and there was a couple people that were asking me questions about it or whatever, but it was clear that like it was crunch time. This thing was way underprepared, and I was, like I said, visibly stressed out about it. And one of the guys at work, this is just like the greatest attitude. He was just like, "Hey man, like I see you're stressed out. I love the like collaboration. Like I had to have stuff done like that night." And he was like, "I'll come over to your house. We'll order some pizza, grab some beers, and we'll just sit there." And I was like, "Oh man, I really appreciate it, but there's like a lot going on, and I don't know if you know this framework that I built it in or what." He's like, "Yeah, dude, no problem. Just show me what you need." Like he's like, "Do you think you could use help?" "Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure."
That's cool.
He was already a professional, but he could have almost been anybody, and I would have been like, "Yeah, dude, come on, like let's do it," because I love those environments. You love those environments, especially if you're writing code. Like I don't like isolated code writing. Like I need to be sitting there collaborating with someone. We've talked about this a lot, actually. The company that we work for went remote during the quarantine, and we all feel like this has kind of hurt. I don't want to say like morale. It's not morale, but it's like the collaboration of the team. Like it feels like productivity is more. It like takes more to get it out of you.
It was just different, and maybe that was just the benefit, the magic of all of us who were the programmers at the office. It felt great at the office.
Yeah.
And so like we can collaborate, but we don't do it necessarily every day. Like the days where we're like actually like we do like a Zoom chat every day, but like it's like it's just a different feel.
Yeah.
And like both can be good. Sometimes you do just need, okay, I want to like turn on my headphones, listen to music, and which we did at the office a lot of the times. But like, I like the collaboration.
Yeah. I think if I don't. It seems like if you ever meet somebody that worked remote for the majority of their dev career, they are different in personality than somebody that's not. And I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but what I would say is if you are that person, or if you're like a junior dev and you're trying to get into it, I would definitely want to put myself in a collaborative environment. And if I was forced to work remote, I would actually ask somebody, maybe a more senior dev, like, "Hey man, can you jump on a Zoom?" Like you just need to feed off people, because even as myself, like I consider myself like a senior developer, dude, I'm learning stuff all the time from guys that know more than me.
And that's the job.
That's the job.
Like learning all the time is the job.
Yeah, exactly. It's really exciting. And honestly, I think I'd never really thought about this before now, but one thing that I kind of think about is there's kind of a common denominator with people that are depressed or whatever you want to call it, or upset with the programming community. And it seems like all of these people are not eager to learn. They're not learning
Oh yeah. Yeah.
constantly. And I think if you're not eager to learn, you'll get eager to learn if you just stay disciplined for like a month and just learn a new thing every day, talk to somebody new every day, feed off of them every single day, and eventually you'll get really excited about it. It's such a rewarding thing to learn something new
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
expand yourself as a developer. Like so yeah, again, if you're like just a junior dev, especially if you work remote, find a way to collaborate with people. Go to a hackathon or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a weird attitude. I don't know why. Me and my wife talk about this as well. Sometimes it feels like different DNA. I don't know why some people are one way and some people are another. But yeah, it's like I just like learning. Like, and I don't think I was necessarily. I mean, I definitely wasn't always like that. I quit college. I quit my first college. I hated school.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I said. I was nerdy enough where like I got good grades and I got, maybe this is like baby stuff, but like I got paid for grades in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I tell you about that? Or
Yeah,
is that like
I
a
think
normal
you said
thing?
it on the podcast before.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if that's like a normal thing. Maybe it was, yeah, I don't know, but we got paid. We'd get paid like $5 an A, $4 a B.
Like an allowance.
Like an allowance, yeah. So I got straight A's.
Yeah.
I got straight A's. I was on the honor roll. And then one time my brother was on the honor roll, my older brother. My dad was so proud because my older brother didn't like money as much as me or whatever. And so he got on the honor roll. My dad was so proud. He gave him a bonus $10 for honor roll. And I said, hey, hey, right here. So then from then on, I was like, I got on honor roll again.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then that stopped when I got a real job. When I started working at Godfather's, I was like, well, I make more money per hour than I do per semester per A. So like, I still would take like extra math classes, but yeah. But then when I went to college, it wasn't for me. I didn't know why I was going. My parents, that's just like an American thing, maybe an everywhere thing. Go to college, and I got my 2-year degree, and I was like, nope, done.
Yeah. You got to find that drive. It sounds like you have this drive, I have this drive. You got to find this drive that is, I just know that I'm capable of more and I want more than I've got right now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's really cool actually because I see my little brother going through this right now. My little brother's 16 years old and he's got a car now and a girlfriend, and it's funny to watch him see life coming together and like starting to see like, oh, this is how things work. Like, and so he's got this job as a lifeguard, and he is. It was so funny because he came to me yesterday or 2 days ago, and he said, you know, it's really frustrating. He said, by the way, our dad's a pilot, for those that don't know, and so obviously my dad makes really good money as a pilot. And I don't know if he asked my dad how much money he made or whatever, but what he did tell me was he said, I just got my first paycheck and I worked for a week and I made $300. And for one, just as a side note, he said, I hated it. I hate this job as a lifeguard. Like, I stand still. I don't get to interact with people. I get sunburned, like whatever. And he's like, and I made $300 in a week. And he's like, then I looked up, yeah, I think he said he looked it up on Google. How much do pilots make? And he was like, do you know that he makes as much as I make in a week in like an hour? And I was like, there you go. Like, that's the light bulb.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so keep working harder. Like,
Yeah.
because like I had that same moment where I'm sitting there grinding away in fast food. And not only am I realizing like, God, I'm just making no money, but I'm also just miserable. Like, this job sucks. And so, man, I just like, I love to tell people that are interested in programming, yes, there's no doubt that you got to have a certain type of brain for it. I do believe anybody can learn it and anybody can develop that type of brain. But the one thing that does seem the same is like all developers come from this background of like, yeah, my driver was to make more money. Like, I wanted to have a better life or whatever. So I don't know if my brother will get into programming, but it is really neat seeing a 16-year-old start to have those like, yeah, why is it that some people make what I make in a week in an hour? And you're like, dude, yeah, keep that in mind. Like, write that on a poster and put it on your wall. Like,
Well, that was like I had said that before. That was why. So I quit school and I just had odd jobs and I started working construction, and I hated my job and didn't make much money. And then my buddy who had graduated from DigiPen loved his job and made a bunch of money. And I was thinking, I think I'm doing something wrong. Like, this isn't. And so that was my drive. It was exactly that. It's like, I can do more. I feel like I can do more.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think I was actually just talking to my cousin about this. This is not super programming related, but whatever. We're just sitting here talking.
Yeah.
The I was asking him. Um, it seems like you said, like when people talk about driven individuals, it feels like the only way to explain it is by saying that's just like ingrained in you. It's built into you. It's a gene or whatever.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some partial truth to that, and maybe it's unfortunate for people that don't get that. Because I sometimes feel like that. Like, but sometimes I do like to take a little bit more of a humble perspective on it and think like, no, maybe that was learned. Like maybe that drive was learned, and maybe it was because of those experiences
Hmm.
that I was frustrated at, my fast food job, and I realized I wanted to make more money. My dad also pushed us really hard. So I don't know. My kind of question for you, we haven't talked about this a lot, is it learned? Like, is it kind of one of those things where it's a little bit more deterministic in the way that you were raised or whatever? Is it like, is it really a gene, or is it something that like it just you have to learn it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a good answer, but I can give you my experiences because me and my wife, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and we do say that like I'm more successful than one of my older brothers, and we're not sure why. We had the same parents. Obviously, we grew up differently because of like different order.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was How old was I? I read How to Win Friends and Influence People in like middle school or something. Why do middle schoolers read those books? I'm not sure, right? So like I'm not sure if there was just something that how my parents raised me, or it was like there was something about being like the third son that made me want to push. Some people do say deterministically the younger child, like sprinters are like oftentimes like a third child.
Are you the youngest? You're the
I'm
baby?
the youngest, yeah, I'm the
Okay.
baby, yeah. And they were saying, and they were wondering if comes from like a need to catch up, like the feeling of needing to catch up, so like they're pushing themselves harder.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, I don't, it's always like the nature versus nurture question.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have any direct answer, but I feel here's something else that I liked. Somebody said this. It's hard to solve that nature versus nurture problem, but the problem is if you say that it's nature, then the question's over. So that sucks.
That's true.
So like you might as well assume that it's nurture. And actually, what I will say is, there is a book. Now we'll do some soft skills. There's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, something like that, psychologist, and she talks about having a growth mindset versus like a fixed mindset. And so like students who believed that they were born with like some determined amount of intelligence uh, continued to do poorly versus students who were like told and convinced that at a young age that they could, like, intelligence wasn't fixed, it was growth, right? So you could
Hmm.
get better. So just by having that mindset of I can do better if I try harder,
Sure.
like people can propel themselves more. So
It seems like, yeah, it seems like people get put in these ruts
mm,
where you can find every reason to believe the cards just got stacked against me. And it seems like that attitude plays way more of a role than anything else, because and see, I don't know, like it's the cause and effect are kind of weird in this situation, because what I would say is every entrepreneur, every really successful person that I met will pretty much tell you like, I'm not concerned about what I can do. I can do anything that I want to do. Like the
yeah,
cliche, like
yeah, yeah,
anything I put my mind to, I can do. And in general, I think you feel that way. I feel that way. It's hard to say if that's the effect of success. But I don't really believe that it is. I think success is the effect of that attitude. I'm not sure what came
yeah, yeah.
first, the chicken or the egg, but I tend to believe that because it does seem like it's really easy to get put in this mindset where it's like, my family's not, they don't have like intelligent jobs or intellectual jobs, therefore I'm not going to have that. I just wasn't really made for that or whatever. Especially if I've talked to people before about like gaining some success or learning programming, they'll just say like, oh, I just like, I wasn't wired for that.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is like, it's not that your intelligence or whatever, your brain is not wired for that. It's that your attitude right now is not wired for
Well, that's
that. And you can change that.
Yeah, because that's what I would say. Again, we don't know exactly, but like for every example of somebody who can say, "Oh, this person had the same circumstances as me and failed. How could I do better?" You can find somebody who had worse circumstances than you and did better, right?
Sure.
Jocko, again, we talk about him all the time. He's just a dude from New England. That's it, right? Like, did other people in his high school become a successful like multimedia star? Joe Rogan is the same way. He came from nothing. Adam Carolla came from nothing.
Yep.
Gary Vaynerchuk came from nothing. Like there's all these people. Like of course some people, people rag on Donald Trump because he didn't come from nothing, and that's fine. Like not everybody has to. His dad was, I think, into real estate and gave him a bunch. Okay, so sometimes people get a big boost.
Sure.
But the fact is, there's a lot of people who didn't have that boost,
Right.
and they still succeeded.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the quote that I've been talking about lately. That quote by Robin Sharma: "Obstacles are the cost of greatness," and you have to. I guess you have to just thrive on those obstacles and just say like, in the end, like if you hit those obstacles, you hit those roadblocks, that's gonna make the end result a whole lot sweeter.
Yeah.
And again, it really is like. I've just been realizing this more and more and more and more the older I get. And I can't say it enough. Like, I'm not some old wise person, obviously. But I do just realize that the older I get, like, the biggest roadblocks in life is your own brain. Like, you have to work against it. You have to tell yourself, like, I don't know, every obstacle that it's putting in front of me, everything that I guess everything that you look at in life and you say, this is the reason that I can't do that. It's like you're just artificially creating that. That's not real.
Yeah.
Like that's all up here. And if you can just break through that, like every motivational speaker on the planet says this. I'm not even saying anything new, but I think it's easy to hear a motivational speaker say like, your brain is a roadblock. Just, let it free and do whatever you want to do. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's like a nice cliche. Everybody says it. But like the more you do break those barriers, the more you realize that is just insanely true.
Well, yeah, and I absolutely agree.
It's not a cliche, is my point. Like,
and the thing is, there are going to be things in life that you can control, and there's things in life that you can't control. I can apply for Facebook or whatever, and no matter what, they might just not hire me. Like, there's a lot of applicants who apply to Facebook, right? So it's like I don't have any direct control over that. I can't even control that I'm the best applicant. I can control that I studied really hard and I prepared and I did the best I could. Those are the things that I can control. I came in with a really good attitude and said, so I can control those things. So control those things.
Yeah.
Do those things.
Yep.
They still might not pick you. Okay, but at least you didn't like do it halfway.
Yeah.
There's
it's funny we're talking about this right now because I had an all-out debate on the 4th of July with my buddy about this late at night because we both have two different mindsets. He has the mindset that especially if you're in America, the only thing holding you back from success is yourself, and you just got to turn your brain into motivation drive mode, and anybody can be successful. And I told him, that's half true. Half of it's not true though, because there's a lot of people in this country and all around the world that get put in situations that are out of their control, like what you're saying. From the get-go, maybe from the time they turn 15 or 16 and they can start working, they've got to pay for medical bills for parents or, help contribute to the bills or whatever. There's a lot of really bad situations out there that people get put in. He couldn't accept that, which was frustrating to me. It's also frustrating to me looking back, though, to realize that he is half right, because he said even these people that get put in really bad situations, you still, it's not that we can't recognize your problem. It's that no matter what, we've talked about this before, this is going to be the savage and brutal part of it. You don't have an excuse or a pass. At the end of the day, nobody's going to give you one. That doesn't mean that you weren't dealt a bad hand, and we can all feel for you. But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to make you different is whether you say, I'm the only one to blame for this and I'm the only one that control it, or I'm just going to be mad at the world. And you have to realize that the latter is not the answer. You have to take full responsibility for everything in your life. And I'll give you a chance to talk about like my one example of this, and this is going to sound silly to a lot of people because I got very lucky. I have no problem admitting that. I can attribute a lot of my success to growing up in a really good home with two parents that were always together, loved each other, and they put me through school and all that. But that being said, my dad was still hard on me and pretty much said, the day you turn 18, you're on your own. Like, I'll give you everything you need up until then. I'll prepare you. But once that day comes, you not in school, you don't live with me anymore, bottom line. And he was serious about that. Like, so much so that he, this is a funny story. I'm rambling here, but
No, it's good. It's
he
good.
told me, whenever I
Does
turned,
your dad listen to the podcast?
yeah, he does. He'll laugh at this. He told me, whenever he stopped paying for my bills and stuff, he said, he's like, okay, well, you need to get your own phone plan. And I was like, okay, yeah, of course. Like, I need to pay for my phone. Totally get that. And I was like, so how much does it cost on your plan or whatever? It's like $40 a month or whatever. Like, we have like 8 people on the plan, so they get like a great rate per person.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, so I'll give you like $40. He was like, no, you're an adult. Like, you can get your own. I was like, well, come on, Dad. Like, for anybody that knows cell phone plans, like if you get one phone on a plan, it's ridiculous how much money it costs. It's like $100 a month for a line, and then every line after that's exponentially cheaper. But he's like, yeah, no, I get that, but like, you're an adult, you got to pay for your own bill. Like, he was like a savage. Like, I'm not like. So I'm like, you do realize that I'm gonna go get another phone on the same carrier, and because you won't let me pay you, I'm gonna pay $80 more a month. He was like, no, yeah, of course, yeah, exactly. Okay, Dad. Anyways, that was a total sidetrack, but that kind of highlights my dad's attitude. So then, when I turn 18, I'm not kidding. On my 18th birthday, I decide, like, I'm gonna go into programming. Like, this is gonna happen. I don't have $1,500 or whatever for a computer, though. This is a problem. And I was leading up to my birthday, I was just really upset, like, honestly, at the world. And again, this is a silly first world problem, I guess. But I was just like, how do people do this? Like, how does an 18-year-old get into this? Like, I don't have money for this. Like, what am I going to do? And I was just frustrated, and I asked my parents for money. Nope, they're not going to help me. I'm just like, oh, so mad. So I was like, you know what, whatever. Like, I'm going to go get a credit card, and I'm going to max it out and get me a MacBook. Like, really financially awful decision. By the way, I'm making like $200 a week at this point, and that's to pay for my car and insurance. I have no money to pay for this MacBook. But I'm just like, I have to make this happen. And the cool thing was, like, that was a huge motivator for me. Like, crap, I have this $1,500 bill. This has to work. Like, I'm not backing out. And I think that sentiment is good for people. Like, do that. Find a way to invest in the thing that you want to do, and do not back out. Make it so that you can't go backwards. Like they say at our current job, like, you got to burn your boat.
Yeah,
and like, for anybody that doesn't know what that means, like, I don't know who it was, the Trojans or whatever, but no, I guess it wasn't the Trojans. I can't remember. But some army back in the day went to go fight some other army, and when they got to the shore, they burned their boat behind them.
So that the army couldn't retreat. They said there's no retreating. We're gonna fight or we're gonna die.
We have to go forward.
We have to win.
I basically said, like, when I got this MacBook, I'm not gonna return it. Like, especially once I get past that 30-day window, my boat is burned. This army would probably laugh at me for my
comparison.
Yeah, for my warriorness here, but. Yeah, but anyways, like that was a very long-winded way of saying to do that. Burn your boat, commit to what you're doing. And I think no matter how bad the circumstances can be, obviously excusing any extreme circumstances, like, I do have to agree with my buddy on the one thing, which is that there's probably in the overwhelming majority of cases, it is just, if you had the catalyst, you could do it. It's not that your circumstances prevent you. It's that this is preventing you, and you just need to dig deep and do it.
Yeah. And so, actually, even like I think even Mr. Money Mustache talks about this. He's like a financial blogger, and he talks about how in America, like, there's so many middle class people who actually could be really, really wealthy if they just manage their money better.
Yeah.
And then people in the comments will always say, well, what about like the single mom with 3 kids? And he'll say, you know what? I bet that single mom with 3 kids is crushing it. I'm not picking on her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's probably working 2 jobs and, like, feeding those kids. And, like, let's give people like that, like, a massive thumbs up.
Sure.
Like, because, like, they are. Like, they're doing their best and they're crushing it. Making the best of maybe, like, an unfortunate situation. But, but the fact is, there's somebody who is in a better position than that single mother with 3 kids who's just lazy.
Yeah.
Or lazier than they should be.
I'm actually really sensitive to both of those situations, because I'm very sensitive about the one where you did just get dealt a bad hand. I actually knew a guy in high school that his mom got cancer when he was 16, and, like, his dad was MIA, out of the picture. And, like, from the day he turned 16, his money was going to pay his mom's bills. And That's rough. Like, that's really rough. And I'm very sensitive to that. I totally understand that. Not everybody gets the opportunity to do. I was only able to do what I did because I had a roof over my head. I was fed.
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned about where I was going to be living that
Hmm.
month. Like, it was fine. So I was able to make a big gamble like that and buy a computer. I get that not everybody is in a situation like that. I'm also sensitive to the situation, even though it might not seem like it. I typically err on the side of tough love, but I am sensitive to the situation where somebody just doesn't know how to break that mental barrier, because
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. Like, I think we've all been in a situation like that. And it does drive me crazy when people are too tough on other people and they refuse to see that, like, that inability to push through that mental barrier is kind of a mental illness, and we need to treat it as such. Like, there's a way to diagnose and treat that
Yeah.
problem. You know what I mean? Like, it could be a lot of things. It could be like, if you are an intrinsically motivated person, maybe it's a gene, but probably more likely it comes from your upbringing, and maybe your parents pushed you, or maybe they didn't. Maybe your parents were super MIA, and because of that, you're driven. I have a
Yeah.
buddy
Yeah.
like that right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah. Yeah.
who he's driven, and he always tells me, like, well, I didn't get dealt a good hand, so why? And I'm like, well, you're probably motivated because they were not very
Yeah. Yeah.
involved in your life. So, but like, that's probably why. So if you find somebody that's not motivated, I do like to be sensitive to that, because you might just not have gotten the circumstances in the beginning of your life that I got that allowed me to be
Yeah.
driven. So let me help you do that. You know what I mean? But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make him drink. But
I used to tell that to my students, and actually, recently I was trying to get somebody into programming, um, and I this was before we started our own courses, so I was giving them access to like my Treehouse account. I was saying, just watch these videos, and like like I'll help you with this stuff, answer questions, but at the very least you got to watch these videos.
yeah,
And then he watched like maybe 2 hours in 2 weeks. And so I kept doing calls with him and going like, do you have any questions? No. Okay, well, like, read this book. I think I had him read So Good They Can't Ignore You, except for I don't think he read it. And I was trying to like get him. I was like, what do you think the problem is? So I wasn't sure, because I didn't want to be harsh.
sure.
Like, I didn't want to just say you're effing lazy. Like, I go just like, so I was saying the exact same thing that we had said. I don't remember if it was in one of our courses or one of like the podcasts, but I was saying, you can do this. Like, anybody can do this. You can change your life. Like, if you just don't quit, then you will be able to get that programming job.
Yeah.
It might be difficult, but that's fine. But he just wouldn't. It wasn't. I mean, he did quit in the end. That's what it was, right? He just didn't watch it. But so it wasn't that he was stupid. It was that for whatever reason, like mental block, he couldn't get past. He just couldn't get past it. And so that's a challenge. And I wanted to work with him more, but he didn't want to do programming. And maybe it's not for everybody. Yeah, I don't know. I think that anybody can do it, but not everybody's going to want to do it when they see what it actually is.
Yeah, I love the thing that you say, though. I think this is a great motivator for people, and they need to hear this. And with programming specifically, this isn't like those ads that you see online, because what you say is really true. If you really commit to this thing, the end result is virtually guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you say that all the time, and that's really important for people to hear, because I think that is a huge, I mean, that is the roadblock for a lot of people. Is like, yeah, everybody wants to make more money, everybody wants success,
Yeah.
but the problem is that, because, I mean, let's be honest, like, success is success because it's hard and it's unclear how to get there. But I don't know, like, programming is one of those things that if you do commit to it, you can rest assured, like, you're gonna make a good career. And maybe your first couple jobs are gonna suck, but you're gonna get there.
So
Somebody wants that talent.
that's the thing is, I think there's a disconnect between what programming is and what we think of. Like, so if I told you, just play guitar every day for 3 hours for the next 3 years, you're gonna get good enough at guitar.
Absolutely.
You're gonna get good at guitar. Like, you're gonna have those skills. You might not become the next Metallica or some like big rock band. Same thing with like basketball. If you play basketball and like are constantly challenging people, like playing against people, like, you're gonna gain basketball skills.
Yes.
You might not be able to play in the NBA, but you're gonna get good. But like, the difference is, if you're not NBA quality basketball, nobody's gonna pay you.
Right.
I don't know, but probably not.
In basketball, yeah, it's probably true.
Well, they're not going to pay you those high salaries.
Sure.
In music, that's basically the same as well. There's so many musicians that just 3 years of guitar, you're not really going to get paid any money.
Yeah.
But 3 years of programming, somebody's going to pay you for that.
Yeah.
Like somebody will pay you for that.
Yeah.
And so like that is guaranteed. There's so many people that need programming, that need those skills, and it can scale massively. Some business person has an idea, they want to make a website, and paying you $60,000 or $70,000 a year can make them millions of dollars, and they know that. Like it scales that way, and so that benefits you. Don't pretend that it doesn't. It benefits you to gain those additional like real world skills. But like to me, that is guaranteed.
Yeah.
Somebody will pay you.
And if you come from some what's the word I'm looking for? If you come from some background where you're not using your brain to solve problems, man, you're in for a huge sense of rewardingness. Wow, I've been coming up with a lot of new words lately. But yeah, like whenever you get into programming, you're going to realize what you're capable of, and I've done a couple things. I probably had 2 or 3 moments in my programming career where I'm just like, dang, that's really cool to see that I could do that. You know what I mean? So not only are you going to make more money, but it's going to be more rewarding mentally. Like you're going to solve better problems. And the other thing is, in programming specifically, it's probably not a lot like, I don't know, building roads or something where it's like the same thing over and over again. Like you're going to work on a lot of different projects.
It's constantly. To be honest, every project is different. Every game is different. Like the game engine, really every game engine is different too. But like the features is going to be different. And every app that I've worked on professionally for a company has been different. I'm solving, some of the problems might be the same, but in general, the problems are different. It's a different app.
Yep. We talk a lot on this podcast where it feels like we talk to an audience. We always say like we want the audience to just be everybody, but we talk a lot to people that are obviously like maybe interested in getting into programming or want to know what to do to get into it. But just a small note, I think, to people that are already here, I think it's so powerful to be able to recognize that somebody needs a push or that somebody could use some help. And I think that goes a long way. Like it's really cool to me to see the guys at work that we have now. They are really good at what they do, and what they work on is completely different from me, like the back end guys. And I just think it's so cool when they're just so eager and willing to help me learn something. And I don't know if they're always feeling great that day, but I know for sure that they're always willing to do that for me. So I don't know. That was just a weird side note. But for anybody that's like already in this industry, lend that hand and help the next guy, like, which is exactly what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to help that next guy get into this thing. Maybe it is reasonable for us to expect that people are learning programming because we have a whole programming course, and maybe that's what brought you to the podcast. But
it's called CODESHO. So I would assume, so like when I wrote that book, when I wrote the book about game design patterns, my target audience was my previous students, like me when I was a freshman or sophomore. And that's kind of like when we are talking about this, sometimes it might feel like these principles could apply to anything. It is more like general, but also I'm kind of thinking like, what did I need to hear, or what message would I have liked to give into my students more when I was a teacher or when I was first starting out? Yeah,
in 60 seconds or less, I'll go first, but I feel like this is the parts that matter, and we can put these clips up even on YouTube. I'm just basically we're gonna give those. What we are going to start doing is putting up little short clips from the podcast of little like nice to knows or whatever. But in 60 seconds or less, I'll go first when you could think about what you're thinking. What would be that advice that you would give to somebody to, like, if they're in the middle of learning programming right now and they get discouraged, or they're wondering like if they feel so far away from the end goal that it is starting to get discouraging, like what's your advice for them? I think for me, that 60-second advice is one. Actually, I think I try to give 2 things, but one, my big one is, like I said, I can't say this enough. I'm just going to keep repeating myself because I really want everybody to do it. It worked for me. Go find someone that's willing to let you write code for them in a real world application. Those people are absolutely out there. If you go message 100 people on Instagram, one of them is going to want you to do something for them. Go do that. Make sure I cannot stress this enough if you haven't had your first job yet. You need to have that real world experience. You need to work on something real. You need to know what it's like to have somebody telling you what to do, giving you unrealistic or realistic demands. You got to understand what both of those are like. Please, 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 once you feel like I can make a website or I can make an app, even if it's really basic, go talk to somebody. Somebody wants it. I've seen so many applications in the App Store. If you work on apps, one's from very basic to really complicated. If you're at the bottom end of the spectrum, trust me, there's thousands of these applications on the App Store and people want them. Go make one. Go talk to a local pizza joint. See if you can make them an app. Go do something.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That is my 60-second advice. That's a little bit unconventional too. The reason I want to say that is because I feel like people don't talk about that enough. Like we talk about all the time. Like the reason getting your first job is so freaking hard is because
you don't have a job. It looks like you have no experience.
Yeah, you have no experience. But the moment you made an app for a pizza shop, you worked for that pizza shop for 6 months. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm not suggesting that you lie on your resume, which is something that we've heard from other YouTubers. I'm not suggesting that at all. But if you do spend 6 months building an application for a pizza joint or a local restaurant or a whatever, some musician, or you build a website for a musician, as far as somebody should be concerned, you worked for them or on that thing for 6 months. I'm putting that on my resume.
That was a client. That was a client.
That was a client. I'm gonna have to put that on 3x speed to be 60 seconds. But yeah, I mean that's my advice. Like, please go do that because nobody talks about that. But like there's no doubt. Like, real quick, one last thing. I don't even know this number, and I'm not even really sure that I've talked to people like this. But it terrifies me to think of how many people probably started learning programming, got decent at it, couldn't find their first job in a couple months, and were just like, all right, never mind. Maybe this isn't for me. Like, man, that actually hurts my heart to think if that's actually real, because the thing you can do to rectify that problem is go do something for somebody for free. If you can find an internship, for sure do that. But if you can, reach out to people. Like I said, and this is free advice right here, something you can actually do that I did. Guaranteed this works. This is 100% success rate. Go find an indie musician that wants a website. If you're learning websites, dude, some indie musician wants an app or a website.
They'll be excited.
They'll be super excited because it's expensive to hire an app or website developer to do something like that. There's some free advice. Go do it. 60 seconds, more like 260 seconds over. What's your advice?
I guess I really liked yours. Like, get a real world project. Mine is maybe something we've already said before. Just don't quit. Like, the thing I used to tell my students all the time, especially because I would teach freshman students, I would say, like, you're going to reach points where it feels hard. Everybody has that. Like, everybody, like, nobody expects you. That was a college level course, but I would say nobody expects you to know programming at this point. Like, that's why you're here. And so, like, whether you're learning in college or wherever, like, you don't know it, and so that's okay. Nobody expects you to know everything. It is going to be tough, but, like, everyone feels that way.
Yep.
And then I guess the second piece of advice I would give is don't focus on the right answer, or don't focus on, like, the correct answer. Just focus on getting an answer.
Yep.
So, like me and you, actually, we're writing iOS and Android apps, but we've come up with different solutions for the same problem. Like the architecture is slightly different anyway because it's on Android and iPhone, but, like, our solutions aren't exactly the same, and they both have pros and cons.
Yeah.
As it turns out, yours is more full of pros than mine. But
I don't know about that.
Whatever. But, like, so that's the thing is, I think I used to have a lot of students who would be tripped up on, like, they wouldn't even start because they didn't know how to do it.
Yep.
And it's like, well, okay, but can you do it? Can you do it the wrong way?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it the wrong way 10 different wrong ways? And then maybe you'll figure out, like, the best out of those 10 different ways. So it's like, don't expect that you're going to know everything. That's fine. Like,
totally normal.
We all constantly learn. And then don't expect that there is a single right way to do it. Just get it done.
And always have the attitude that you don't know everything. That's got to be true. Because even as us that we've been doing this for a long time, I still walk into conversations all the time. They don't bother me anymore like they used to, but I'm like, I'm out of the loop here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And that's okay. That actually gets me excited to learn. And one last little piece of advice that kind of adds on to what you were saying is if you do hit that thing that you don't know how to do, like you blatantly just don't even know how to get to the end result. One of these things for me whenever I was learning web development was I could make a website, I could run it on my computer, but I didn't know how to get it up on a server. Like I didn't know how to host it on a .com.
I didn't know that until I met you.
And there are so many developers that they would get to that point and be like, oh, I don't know how to set up a server. And also, that's not what I plan to do. So we'll stop here.
Yeah.
No, go do it.
Go do it.
Go
Yeah.
learn it. Like, you'll figure it out. And actually, like we say all the time, and at this point in my career, I get excited for those moments. Like, yeah, that's what there's something I don't know. Let's figure that out. That's going to make me more marketable.
Yeah.
I'm also going to feel better. I'm going to solve more problems. So yeah, if you hit that thing that you don't know how to do, just do it. And especially if it excites you. Like if you're working on an app, we're about to upload a video about this. But we have a app, for example, in our course where you build like a quiz app, right? And if you build that, it's an API-driven app. So you're going to communicate with the server, you're going to get the questions from the server, and you're going to answer it, and the server's going to tell you whether or not you're right. So that's pretty exciting. If you're excited about that, great. Once that application is done, if you're excited about the back-end side of that, go learn how to do it. And luckily, we're not like Laravel or back-end developers by trade, but I was excited about it at one point. I learned how to do it basically. I'm not a senior Laravel developer by any stretch, but I'll teach you how to do what I know how to do, which is build a basic API for a mobile app. And if you're excited about that, don't shy away from that because it's not app development. Go do it. Like, no doubt that, especially in the mobile app world, if you learn API development, that even if you're not writing APIs, that experience will come to play in your job. Like at one point, you're going to have a conversation and you're like,
going to be interacting with the API dev.
Yes. Yeah. I know what that looks like. If they tell you about some limitation, you're going to be like, oh, I know why that's a limitation because I've experienced that before. So do that. And then the last part of that is if you're excited about something, for sure focus on that. Please don't let somebody go tell you to write Python if you're not excited about Python. Write something you're excited about. If you're excited about making apps, make apps. If you're excited about Python, write Python. If you're excited about API development, create APIs. But work on something that you're excited about and also go apply that to some real-world experience. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah. I'm going to go one more.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
60 seconds times 2.
Oh, my God. Yeah, this has gone on with.
So, also 2 pieces of advice that I used to always give, and it's like the same stuff over and over, but like focus on becoming really, really good. Again, it's not about getting the right answer. Just focus on how can I get better. If that's your focus, again, write projects that you like, but if you're focused on getting really good, like people will find you. I mean, maybe at first you have to go find other people, but then the second part of that is focus on being really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So like that's the part of it. If you're focused on getting good, how can I get better at building websites? Go look for somebody to help. Like you said, like that really, I guess those 2 points kind of shrunk down your point of like, go out and help somebody. Cause in the words of Lynchpin, like go give gifts, be an artist, go give gifts. And like, it can come back to you.
Yeah. Last thing from me, I'll add one more.
I got one more thing too. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I guess just recognize that if you're in the middle of this isn't really advice. This is more just inspirational. Recognize that there is no shortcut to success. The world wants you so badly to believe that that's not true, but it is. Unless you hit the lottery, there is no quick track to success. It's going to take deep work. And I like to think of it like this. Every hour that I have spent digging deep and learning some new skill, you're not doing that for free. You're absolutely not. Every dollar that you spend doing that, there's a dollar sign attached to it, and that dollar sign comes in the form of the salary that you're going to get when you start working.
Well, yeah, the dollar sign when you start working, but then compounded.
Yes.
Like that's the thing is, right? Like the more you we're never going to end this episode.
No.
But like my mom used to complain that my dad was a workaholic, but he did work a lot, and maybe that's where I get my attitude from. He would work a lot, and I would say, yeah, but he always got raises, and she's like, no, he doesn't. And then I go, but then he would quit that job, and he'd go get like 30% raise at that next job, and she's like, oh yeah, I guess that's right. So it's like there is that like compounding because he would work so hard at this job and learn a whole bunch of new skills, and then somebody will pay him for that. So like you said, it's not, and like that's like I don't know what the ROI is, but if you're making $0 and then you study a whole bunch, and then you can go from making $0 to like 60 or 70,000, like that's an infinite ROI. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like it's valuable. And then like 4 years from now, maybe you're making 140,000. I don't know, but
Yeah, I tell people whenever I got my MacBook and I think I bought like $100 worth of courses on Udemy or something like that. My total investment when it was all said and done was probably like $2,000, and I was able to turn that into a salary that basically meant when it was all said and done, my ROI on my investment was something between this is a broad range, but something between like 220 and 100,000% or so. It was like
yeah,
it was so ridiculous that it's like not even worth quantifying. And it's an important point because there's so many young people that like think that like the quick track to success is like, I don't know, playing stocks on the stock market. That's a bad example because people should invest their money probably, but I'm not a financial advisor, but you probably should invest your money. But the point is like, there's no return on investment like that. There's nothing that you can do that's like that. And the cool thing about that return on investment is the way that I quantified it when I said it was like 100,000% ROI or whatever. That was like based on 1 year's salary.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I get to make that every year.
It compounds, and more, right? It compounds with like the raises you get, like inflation raises, or whenever you switch jobs. So like lifetime earnings. Let's say you were just working construction versus like you become a programmer. Like there's gonna be a gap there, right? And like the raises that you get as a programmer are gonna be more. So and like that's for your lifetime. You might by making that choice, you might make an extra. I don't know the numbers, but let's say like an extra 2 to 5 million over your lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
Absolutely. And if you invest it wisely, who
Even,
knows?
that's what I'm saying. Like even more.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And then if you become a business, if this is one of the things I like about programming is it is easier than ever to start your own business.
Yep.
So like if you do start your own business, then it's even more.
Every business needs a programmer, it seems like these days. And not only is it easier than ever to start up a business, it's also easier than ever to learn. We have a free course. YouTube is packed with people that want to teach you how to learn. So last piece of advice that we can actually end on is get active in a community and talk to people. Come join our Discord. We have a Discord channel. Come talk to us. Again, we're all about transparency and whatever. It's not super.
Follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter. Message us on there. Message us on Discord. Discord may or may not be all that active right now, but come talk to us. Like, ooh, that's even better. We'll come talk to anybody. We'll give you any advice that you want. So come talk to us. Yeah, get at us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We appreciate everybody watching the podcast, and we hope that it's helping some people. We're just having fun doing it. So that's it for episode 6. We can't wait to tune in next week. And, thanks for watching.
Have a good one.
See y'all next week.